From here on out, every foul is flagrant, boy. Let's go. What's up? Came in a chokehold, more balls than Esco. All right, maybe
you are now tuned into the chat room, your favorite baller's favorite podcast.
Welcome back to the Chatroom Podcast. I am the Senator, and with me today I got Coach.
What it do, y'all? Lakers in 6.
Also got Dewayne.
Going on.
And on this episode, we are honored and fortunate to have some really dope guests, and we're going to get some really dope conversations. I've just met one of these gentlemen just maybe like 10 minutes ago, but I do know the other gentleman for
years,
maybe the past 15 years. I don't even know. I lost track of how long I've actually known him.
Been a while, brother.
So we have Officer Trumaine.
How you guys doing?
And Officer Milton.
Blessings.
And before we even jump into like any of these check-ins, the roundtable discussions, the actual interview part, I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to kind of like just talk about yourself. You don't gotta go into super details if you don't want to, but if you just want to give like a quick overview of like why you got into the work that you got into and how you enjoy it and that type of stuff. I'll let you guys start.
I'll let Trumaine go first, the younger man.
You don't want to do age before beauty? So the reason why I got into this profession, firstly, it's my third profession. I used to be a teacher. I taught overseas in England for a couple of years, and then I came back to Toronto and got into the TTC. I was driving the TTC for a little bit. That job wasn't the most satisfying for me. And my uncle is actually a police officer. So I've always had police in my family growing up, and it was always something I was interested in. So when I came back to Toronto, I decided to give it a try. And that's where I actually, I met Milton when I was getting into pursuing the profession. He was in the recruitment and gave me a lot of wisdom and advice into joining this job. But some of the reasons why I joined this job is because I grew up in Jane and Finch. And when I was younger, I didn't really see many police officers that like look like us. I felt that it'd be something that I would be good at because I was always thinking about like community. I did a lot of parks and recreation. I was always working with youth and getting involved in certain things in my community. So I always thought like this would be a great next step, working as a police officer.
Okay.
And for myself, ironically, this is also my second profession or job, so to speak. I worked for 7 years for the deafblind as an intervener and a lead hand for 7 years prior to becoming a police officer. And what I went to school for was looking into actually being a teacher. I was going to teach phys ed and math. And while I was in school, I had an encounter with a police officer that I thought was very negative, and not to say that all my interactions were negative, but this particular one, I was literally driving down Orton Park, and I was in my 4th year of university at York and felt that I'd arrived. I came from Jamaica and I was 11 years old and felt that, I had to go through a certain step. And now I think to myself, I've become a citizen of Canada for a long time, giving back, and felt that I've become a productive member of society. But driving down Orton Park, I flashed my light off and on to say hello to my pastor, and a police officer pulled me over. Now, when he pulled me over, I was racking my brain thinking to myself, what did I do that was so wrong? I wasn't speeding, nothing contrary to the law. So I asked a question, may I please ask why you stopped me? I wasn't rude or belligerent. I just wanted to know why, because at the time I felt you had to be doing something wrong to be stopped by the police, not realizing, yes, they can stop you to check for driver's license, ownership, mechanical deficiencies, sobriety, etc. But at that particular time, I'm trying to think what was wrong. That could have been a great opportunity for that officer to say to me, you know what, young man, I'm stopping you for this reason or this reason. I'd flash my light, or even ask me the question, why did you flash your light? Because my pastor was sitting on the veranda and I wanted to say hello to him. When I flashed the light, he would have seen the car, because my mom's car, would have known who it was. The man said to me, you're getting a ticket. And he went off on me. Now, he never said these words. But how I felt, it's as if he was saying to me, nigger, don't question me. And that's how I was treated at that moment. And that was the moment I decided I was going to become a police officer. Because I thought to myself, I know that I'm a law-abiding citizen as an honor student, athletic president, school president. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm a positive member of society and I would be treated like this, what about that individual may sometime talk back, or perhaps, quote unquote, as they may say, have a chip on their shoulder? I displayed none of that. I was professional, and yet I was courteous and treated very poorly. So at that particular time, that's what I said, I'm going to become a police officer. Had one other negative encounter, not going to bring it up, but it was just, at that moment, I decided this is what I'm going to pursue. This is what I'm going to do, because I wanted the community to recognize that there's officers that can treat the community better and treat the community well, as well as the officers know, hey, there are great people in the community. How you interact with them and how you treat them can entail the kind of relationship that we have. So that was my mindset at the time.
Definitely. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I appreciate you telling that story so early in the podcast too. I will say it's gonna sound a little weird when we just jump into the next question, because it's gonna be like, oh, you guys touch on a very serious topic first, and now let's ask that random question. What was the worst haircut you ever had?
We're both bald.
Yeah, we're both bald-headed.
It's a bald. You guys are bald in the pod right now.
You guys,
Me too.
In high school, one time I had a haircut. Now, it wasn't bad to me, but my uncle didn't like it. So it was really low up the front, and had a tuft at the back, right? And my uncle said, he was reaming me out like, why can't I haircut that, But so for me, that might be the worst, because he commented on it negatively.
Okay.
I think my worst haircut would be probably when I was in like elementary school, and my dad thought it would be a good idea to perm my hair. And, and the only reason why it probably turned out looking good at the end, but I just remember the burning and the patches of skin there, like the flesh appearing the next day and stuff like that. So I think that would be my worst haircut.
Saying your nightmare is just like smelling that in your dream. You're like, oh man, I gotta wake up.
When the burn just hits out of nowhere, you want to wash it out. Yeah.
Coach.
I mean, it's tough for me because like I've never really had plenty of haircuts. Like I've always had my hair like low, like 0.5 low, or I had braids, or I had afro, I had a fro. But I would say like there was one time when I went to Jamaica, and usually what happens is whenever I go to Jamaica, I get my hair cut prior to go to Jamaica. When I get out to Jamaica, I won't cut it at all. I'll just, keep get it all and then have like one of my cousins braid it for me. This time, I went to one of the barbers in Mandeville, and I got my hair cut, and this guy pushed my hairline like so far back. I was like, what is going on? I purposely didn't go to school for like the next week. Like I got a haircut to fly back to Toronto, and I purposely didn't go to school for like a week. I'm like, I gotta have this grow back a little bit so I can, look some kind of way, because at that point I was like in grade 10 at West Hill. I'm not trying to go to school in the middle of the hood and have my hairline pushed back. I'm not trying to do that. So, so that probably was like my worst.
Okay, Dewayne.
I have to say probably when I was like 19 or 18, I made the mistake of having my cousin do my haircut. Dude, he's the exact same age as me. Hairline was pretty much all the way to the top of my head up here, and the corners. How you're supposed to have those lineups here?
Yeah.
It was all the way back to my ears.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
let's just say you could see all the forehead. At that point, I looked bald, but I had hair. It was crazy.
Wow. For me, this is like one of my most embarrassing stories. So for me, it was, I had a job interview at the Boys and Girls Club, and I needed to get a haircut, and it was like 8:00 in the morning, and there's no real black barbershops open at 8:00 in the morning. So I went to
Cut Above would have the sign saying open at 8, but they don't open up.
Yeah. So I remember this. I went to Simple Cuts by Morningside and Kingston, and I've never I paid $30 for the cut, and I was like, okay, they're washing your hair and everything. I was like, okay, this is good, like a good service. And the guy put the razor through to initially cut, and then he cut like one part and then goes, oh man, I just want to let you know this is the first time I ever cut black hair before. And I was like, and when I tell you, I left out of there, like I went in there confident for my interview, but I left out that barbershop and thought I'm not getting that job because of the Batman signal hairline that I had. It just was not a good look. But for black men, getting your haircut is like it's like life changing, like getting that perfect haircut, like you line up and everything, like get like the your face nice and done, like everything oiled up, like it's like you leave that barbershop like a different man. And when somebody messes that up, man, it's everything. It's the worst, man. I was like, yo, you couldn't have admitted that you never cut black hair before you started cutting?
Before, yeah. Hold on,
but you got the job though.
I did get the job, and for people that know me, I worked there for a very long time.
Yeah, man.
So I guess my question would be for you. Did you pay full price?
It was $30. That's how much you pay at the regular barbershop. I was like,
I know,
right.
but
I
paid, what I'm saying is after you got it.
No, I paid full price because I got it because I left with my hair washed too. So like it was a full service. I was just okay with that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But all right. So I got a quick question that might not be on the question sheet. And this is just honestly, to tell you the truth, it's just something that came up because of the fact of all like Ontario is putting out their reopening plan. Alberta just put out their reopening plan. And according to some of these governments, it's kind of like COVID is done in July. So my question to you guys is, have any of you guys gotten any of the vaccine shots? If not, that's okay. And did you have any side effects? Because I think one of the big things about this whole thing with the COVID shots is that people get them, but people don't want to talk about like the side effects or some of the symptoms that they may have. So just a quick question for you guys. Like, did you guys get it? And did you guys get any symptoms if you did?
I got mine. I actually got my second one yesterday.
Okay.
And it was just like any other shot I've ever had, just a little soreness on my arm. I didn't get sick or anything like that. I wasn't fatigued or just went out my normal day. So I wouldn't say I had any side effects. I do see people's apprehension about getting a shot, but me personally, I haven't had any side effects. I just took it as when I was in school, we had to go get shots when we were kids, and I just took it as the same thing. So just another shot, and hopefully, if I get my shot, I can have more freedom sooner.
Okay.
I took mine, the Pfizer one, at ending of March. And ironically, I had no side effects from it, just a regular shot, but 8 or 9 days later, I did get the COVID. I did get sick, but they say the shot kicks in about 14 days. So I got sick prior to the shot becoming effective. And perhaps it might have helped. And it didn't have to be hospitalized. It was a rough several days while I was sick. The coughing was just horrendous. But I'm slated to get my second shot perhaps in July. I could have gotten it sooner, but they recommend that you wait 3 months if you got COVID before you get your second shot. So personally, I have no issues getting the shot. I think, even though there's apprehension pertaining to it, my thing is this, that I'd rather take it and live with some of the side effects, because I've known several individuals who've gotten sick, who've gotten COVID and have died.
Yeah.
And for me, my thing is, what? I'd rather chance the side effects rather than getting sick and then, perishing. So.
Mm-hmm. And my stepdad's 70, so I don't want to be going around him unprotected. Not for me, because I'm younger and I probably would be able to handle it, but he's 70 years old and it wouldn't be a good look if, he got sick because of me, so that was another reason why. And I also got Pfizer as well.
Definitely. Dewayne, I know you came on here before and you said you did. Did you get any symptoms?
No symptoms, just the soreness in the arm. It lasted about a day and a half. Other than that, no symptoms. No, I wasn't tired or anything like that. So yeah, I was fine. I'm slated to get my second one in August, but now they're saying that you're able to get your second one. So I'm probably going to book it. I'm probably going to book it as soon as possible. Right now, I tried to go today actually, but there was at Shoppers Drug Mart in Bayview there and York Mills, but they said that they ran out. So I'm going to book again and see if I can get the second one as soon as possible.
Okay. Coach.
I have not gotten my shot. I'm one of those that are on the fence. I have a daughter and I work in a residential home, so like I can get it. I'm not sold yet, and I live my life like very, very careful. So that's not to say that like I'm not gonna get there, whatever the case is, but like I don't know. I'm just not sold yet. I'm nothing against people who get it. I'm not saying I'm not gonna get it. I'm just at the stage right now where it's not sold yet. Like I'm one of those guys who like I've gotten the flu shot that I can recall. Like that was my choice. I got the flu shot once in my life. I'm 32 now, and I'm sure that when I was younger, like I have my daughter now, I'm sure that like I've had plenty of shots like measles, all that stuff before when I didn't have a say to it, But like for me having a say to it, I had my flu shot last year when my daughter was one, just to kind of keep her from like because babies can't get their flu shots, whatever. So I did that. And I was so pissed off because I was sick for like 3 days, and that's the worst I ever felt in my life. So yeah, I'm just at the point right now where, as I said earlier, that I haven't gotten yet. Might get in the future. I'm undecided right now. So yeah, that's my little thing.
Just to touch upon that, for me, when I got the flu shot twice in my entire life. The first time I got it, I was like you. I got so sick, I vowed I'd never take it again. But then what transpired is, for my wife's sake, in terms of sickness and stuff like that, underlying conditions, I took it the second time, and the second time I had no issues.
No issues.
But I vowed I was never going to get it. But the first time I was sick as a dog.
Yeah, I was.
But the second time I got it, I was fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, no, like I don't, like, those who know me, like I usually don't get sick. Like if I do get sick, it's like, like something is really, really wrong. But like I usually don't get sick. So that's for that. But like when I got the flu shot, like I was down. Like I couldn't keep nothing down. I was like sweating. I had cold sweats. I was in pain. It was so bad, man. It was so bad. And then after that, I'm like, I'm never getting it again. And then here I am today, where I'm like, like if it means in the future, well, like my daughter's protected, my family's protected, all that's protected, then it's a no-brainer. Like it's something that, like as a provider and stuff that like I'm gonna do, but until I get to that bridge, I'm just here,
I think it's different for like I said, I was apprehensive at first too. That my mom's in healthcare, my wife's family's in healthcare, and they talked about it and kind of let me see that maybe it's something I need, especially because in my job, I got to go to people's houses. I got to be out on the road. I'm like mixing around with a whole bunch of different people. So my I would say my
Risk
chances
is
of maybe
higher.
catching something is higher than maybe you, because you work. I guess you said you work in a residential home, like it's one place, right?
Yeah, one place. Yeah.
Yeah, and one day I can go to like 20 different places. I don't know if everybody in those places are being careful or washing their hands and stuff like that. So it's based on like your own, like what your lifestyle is and
For sure.
and how
And I'll be honest with you, I was apprehensive. I did get the shot. I got the Pfizer shot. I actually got what is one of the lesser known symptoms from the shot, and I have few spots on my arms of skin discoloration, which goes away after 4 days. But it's one of those very lesser common symptoms. So I did contact 811, like they suggest for you to do, just to see like if it's something I should have been worried about or anything like that. They said as long they're like, as long as it's not spreading, then you're okay. It goes away. And they wanted to know if it was like an allergic reaction to it. It's not. It's just, like I said, just one of the lesser symptoms. And the only reason why I truly decided to get it is because my work contract got extended. So I had a job that was a temporary job for 6 months, and it's working with the homeless population. So once it got extended until next year, I was like, I'm going to like viewings and all that stuff with these homeless people that won't be able to protect themselves like how I protect myself, right? Like the chances of their close contacts are really high compared to mine in my normal life, right? So I felt like I needed to do whatever I have to do to protect myself. So yeah, as long as it's not spreading, I keep a track on it. It hasn't spread at all. It's actually getting better now. So I'm just hoping it's gone by next week, because as a black man with smooth skin, I don't want to see any blemishes on it. You know what I mean? So here's the last question for the roundtable discussion. You're getting offered $10 million to do karaoke, and you have to be able to sing one song, but you have to know at least 90% of the lyrics to that song. Which song are you choosing?
Is there any like stipulations or anything like that? Because I'm not a gambling person. So.
like me being the smart aleck I am, like I'm gonna easily say like A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say
one of those kind of songs.
Happy birthday.
But
Nah, you're at a Korean karaoke bar, and a rich person says, "Yo, I'll give you $10 million if you can choose a song from this book and sing it. 90% of the lyrics, you know it."
Mine will definitely be anything. Well, not anything. Probably like 3 to 4 Backstreet Boys songs. For sure. For sure.
Right.
Oh man. Hey man, you guys know like I love my 90s pop. So 3 to 4 Backstreet Boys songs. NSYNC song.
Okay.
Spice Girls. Like any of those genres, like yeah, I can probably sing about 80-90%. One Backstreet Boys song I can sing 100%, but I'm not gonna get into that. But yeah.
All right, my girl is the only one that knows this secret, but I'm gonna finally bring it up.
We're on the pod. Good, let's go. Let's spill the beans, man, on the pod.
So, New Kids on the Block.
There we go.
Never Let You Go by Jordan Knight. I know that song top to bottom. My girl was shocked. She's like, "You listen to this?" I'm like, "Listen, no one must know." But I'm very I'm good with it now. I've dealt with this. I'm confident enough to tell the world.
We want
Backstreet Boys, Jordan Knight, Never Let You Go.
We want to appreciate Fanfare's girl for giving him the confidence to come on here to actually do such a strong
empowering her black man.
Yep.
Go, man.
I think
mine would be Whitney Houston, The Greatest Love of All. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well.
Yeah.
Man, that would be mine. I'm not saying I wouldn't sing it well.
Yeah. Nobody said anything about singing well. You just have to know 90% of the lyrics.
About singing well. Yeah.
When Kanye's Love Lockdown album came out, I had that whole album memorized. So anything off of there,
Anything on
I
that?
would probably be able to
Yeah.
sing 70, or is it 70 or 80%? Would you say?
90%. 90%.
Oh, 90%.
90%.
90%. I can get through as long as the beat was playing. I
The
don't know
beat's
if I can do it
playing?
without.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beat's
I
playing.
could do
All
that.
right.
That's important.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So for me, I am going to choose the
Okay.
easiest route. So y'all decide. Y'all
What
started
cartel
off.
song are you gonna say?
Nah, y'all started off with saying A, B, C. I'm gonna go with probably the second easiest song that was ever done in R&B and hip hop history, and that is the song because it's only one
Same
verse.
chorus, yeah,
It's one verse
yeah,
and
same
one
verse.
hook
Yeah, it
3
was.
times.
It was,
So,
it was.
so as long as I know the first verse and the chorus,
You're good. You're good.
You are good.
I'm
yeah.
good for the
That's
rest
true.
of it, right? So,
That's true.
so that's my answer.
All he did was just get more assertive and
Yeah.
higher
Yeah.
each verse.
Yeah, it's one verse,
In the tempo.
one
That's
verse
all it
2
was.
times, and the chorus 5 times. I'm good.
What about that? What about the ad libs?
Hey, I only have to sing the main words, right? Like-
That's it. And then if you're doing good karaoke with good people, you'll have people around you doing the ad-libs for you.
Oh, okay.
It'll be good.
In fact, I will say that's one of the things that I missed throughout this whole like the pandemic was at least 5 or 6 times since I'm a year when I moved out to Calgary, I would end up at like Korean karaoke places. And we would do it. And there was this one place, it's like the private rooms, it's just you and your people and stuff just singing. So like it's always a vibe in there. So the fact that like I haven't been able to do that in pretty much a year and a half has been crazy. And so now once it opens up, man, I think that might be one of the first things I do. So I'll tell you.
All right. So into the discussion and stuff. So yeah, we've all kind of seen the perception of like law enforcement in media, in discussion groups and conversations, all that stuff. We all seen like how the perception has been, especially with like the George Floyd and Tamir Rice and like all the stuff that has been going on in the U.S. and like throughout the world. But kind of take us through like your journey in your career a bit. Like how has that been? And like we've all heard kind of like we've all heard people say that like when police officers leave their house, they don't know if that's the last time that they're gonna come back to their house. So like there's that level of like fear and stuff, or not, I don't want to say fear, but that level of like being aware. So I guess my question would be right now is, has there been a time where you've been in a situation where you've had to draw your weapon, and what has that experience been like for you? Like how has that experience shaped your career?
You want to go first?
All right, sure. For me, there've been a few instances when I've pulled my service weapon. On one situation, I'm going to speak of this one particular situation. I was working in Scarborough at the time, and I was traveling on Kingston Road, and I saw a gentleman walking down the street, and he had a gun in his hand. Now, at that particular time, I didn't know what kind of gun it was. I saw a gun. I didn't know where he was coming from, what had transpired, where he was going. And what I did, as we're taught, there's several things: space, so distance, time, and cover. Those are 3 things that we're taught in policing. So you want to be away from that individual. So create some space between you and that individual, right? You want to cover. So, cover or concealment. So for me, I got out of my car, I went behind the police vehicle so I can address the individual from that distance and have the engine block in the car. If this person decides to fire at me, I had some cover because I had to engage this person because I don't know where they were going. And then time. Time is your friend. So you take the time to de-escalate the situation, speak with them. And you also want to create that space to let them know, hey, I'm not here to kill you. I'm not here to harm you. I want the situation to end well, but I need to address it. So that's what I did. I got out of my vehicle, went behind my car. I radioed and let dispatcher knew what I had. I drew my weapon, and then I commanded the individual to stop, drop their weapon, etc. And it worked out fine. It worked out fairly well. It turned out it was a BB gun.
Okay.
right? But those BB guns, they look so real.
Yeah.
You
It's
don't
true.
know. You know, so what I've done in the future from that time on in the community, I've done presentations where I've gotten guns that are real, guns that are fake, and try and have members of the community
Try
pick
and
out
figure it
which one
out.
is real, which one is fake. It's difficult to do, especially even from a distance. And there are manufacturers who actually make fake guns to look real,
Look real.
and real guns to look fake
look
with
fake.
Hello Kitty on them and all that sort of thing. So it's difficult to differentiate the real from the fake. But there's measures that we have that we can create that space and distance and address the situation so all can end up well. And that's what transpired. I've pulled it on other occasions, but you know, and so far I've pulled it and everything I've worked out well. I've pulled it when there was real guns involved, but once again, that space, that distance, and you know, thank God it's always worked out well in my favor.
Did you guys ever see the news article about the person that got arrested because he painted his 9mm to go inside to look like a Nerf gun? And it
Yes.
was
Seen that?
I
Yes,
saw that.
I'm well aware of that situation because, as I said, when I was teaching in the schools, you know, I was aware of that from way back that they've had those possibilities where they're literally making the gun to go into that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's ludicrous.
Yeah, no, like part of the things I've been kind of lucky, like in like my line of work out here, is like working with like youth that are at risk. Even when I was in Toronto working with Boys and Girls Club stuff, like working with youth that are at risk or deemed at risk and stuff, is that like out in Calgary, I don't know if they have in Toronto, but out in Calgary they have the police museum, and it's free. It's free. Like you can go, anybody can go whenever they want. It's free to the public, and literally like you go in there and they have like real guns. They have fake guns that look like real guns. Real guns look like fake guns. They have like the SWAT attire. They have all the information on that. They have the information available to the public on like the most dangerous intersections in Calgary and like the SWAT stuff and the police dogs and all that stuff at the police museum. And I've been able to go there like a bunch of times with a bunch of youth and stuff. And me going there, I've been able to like soak up some information and like I've been able to see that, oh shoot, like they really have like obviously like you see stuff in the news, right? But like I'd be able to go and say, oh no, this is a fake gun, a BB gun. This is a real gun. They both look the same, you know. And unless you're holding it in your hand, if you feel the weight difference, then you're not gonna know, right? So speaking to speaking to what Milton just said, like it's if you don't know, you don't know, and like yeah, that's that.
Well, me personally, Milton's been on the job longer than me. 7 years. I pulled my my gun just a few times. I actually was fortunate enough never having to have to point it at anyone. I've also pulled out my taser. That's when I've actually had to point it at someone, but I've never actually deployed it. So there's been a few occasions where I've had to display my uses of force, but I've never actually had to use it. And again, I'm like right now I'm in a different unit where sometimes I have to walk around with a rifle. So I'm not pointing anyone, but it's out. So it's like people see it. Yeah. So it does give a certain perception, but again, that's something that you can't like conceal. It's out in plain of the day. So I have to be constant of how I'm like holding it, or because I know it does give people apprehension and stuff like that. But like Milton said earlier, when those situations, time, distance, and space is crucial because like Milton said, he saw a gentleman with a gun. The occasions where I've pulled out my weapon, it's been people with knives, and so same thing. You got to keep your distance because someone with a knife could charge at you in a second. They're on top of you, right? So you're always having to like assess and reassess and think the ways to keep yourself safe, the person or people that you're dealing with safe, and then other people around that are safe.
Makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really insightful stuff, man. It's like us as the public, like we can assume things and we can hear things, but it's nice to kind of get that perspective and stuff from people who are actually wearing the uniform and being involved with that stuff daily, right? I guess the next thing I'll ask is like, we've all pretty much heard of like the Miranda rights and like that kind of stuff. But like besides like those Miranda rights, what are some rights that like you think that like myself or others as civilians should like kind of know when they're kind of being when they're being stopped or whenever they're involved with law enforcement? Like, what are some other things that that the civilians should kind of know?
Well, like the Miranda rights is more of a American.
US,
Yeah.
US,
So here would be your rights to counsel. Basically, that you have the right to speak with a lawyer. Your right to not say anything to incriminate yourself or anything like that. Main thing, for example, if a police officer stops you, you have the right to ask, am I being detained? Am I free to go? Like if they're not investigating a crime, you don't have to have that conversation. It's not saying that you don't, like you might want to have the conversation because it might be a friendly conversation. Like not every interaction with a police officer is going to be one that's negative and they're like looking to get you in trouble or something like that. They might need your assistance in something, but you do have the right to ask, do I have to have this conversation with you? You also have the right to record any interactions you have with police officers. Even if you're like someone that's not involved in the situation, you can record it as long as you're at like a distance where you're not obstructing or getting involved, but you do have the right to record and be present.
And we've seen where that has been beneficial. Speaking like directly to like George Floyd, you know.
Yeah, you do have that right. And in terms of even vehicle stops when you're driving, the only person that's obligated to speak to the officer that stopped them, unless they can find and show some criminality or criminal behavior, etc. But only the driver, is obligated to speak to the officer, and in terms of it just to do with the vehicle stop itself, driver's license, ownership, insurance, and what's involved in that. And your name, especially if you don't have your identification. The passengers, do not have to speak to the officer unless they're not wearing their seatbelt. And in that sense, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, you're over 16, you're going to be ticketed in that regard. Then you must volunteer that information, identification, to give to the officer so they can record who you are if they're going to give you that ticket. If you're under 16, 15 and under, then it's the driver who's responsible to ensure that you have your seatbelt on. But you're not obligated as a passenger to speak to a police officer. Not saying that you cannot, and not saying that you should just be quiet, but in terms of your rights. And sometimes if the officer approaches you and they're respectful, etc., and you want to be respectful, you can have a cordial conversation, but in terms of your right, there's nothing obligating you to speak to an officer at any time other than in those situations, and even if you're arrested for criminal activity, you still don't have to speak to them. Now, if you're not identifying yourself, then they can take you to the police station until they're satisfied with your identification. So recognize that if you don't speak, sometimes it can be more detrimental for yourself because they have to establish who you are as a person if they're going to charge you. And they can keep you as long as necessary to identify who you are.
I got a funny story for you based off of that, what you just said, Milton. So I was in high school and we went out for lunch and they stopped the car that I was in right on Galloway. I was heading back to school. I went to Laurier and they stopped it right at Galloway. And it's a good thing I stopped at home first because I picked up a textbook because I had no ID, nothing on me. And so they're walking around, they're asking everybody like, all right, can we see identification? Can we see like, what's your name, whatever? So I tell them my real name and they're like, okay, do you have anything to prove that this is your real name? I was like, yeah, I got a textbook that I just wrote my name in like 3 days ago. They're like, all right, that was my ID that got me out of the situation. It was literally just a textbook, but it was just something that saved my name in it. So
no, I mean, like kind of speaking to that, kind of speaking to what Trumaine said earlier, is that like not every interaction with police officers are negative. I've had, like, growing up in Galloway, Kingston and Galloway, I've had my handful of run-ins with the law, both negative and positive. But like some of the most memorable experiences I've had have been like for like times where officers have been like kind to me, like, and like as a Black man, that's odd. Well, for me to say it's odd, like I've had instances where I made a genuine mistake. Like I was switching over my vehicles. I didn't have no license, no registration, no license plate, nothing in my vehicle. I was just driving it because I slipped my mind. I was driving it from my house to the auto mechanic place. No, it didn't register my mind. And I got pulled over, obviously, because I had no plates, nothing on my car. And the cop stopped me, and he was like, you have no plates on your car. I'm like, oh shoot, I completely forgot, And like, he's like, okay, can I have your license and registration? And so like in my panic, I'm looking for my license registration. As I'm realizing, oh shoot, I left my license registration on my car, so I'm on my table, so I'm looking for that. I'm panicking. I'm going through everything. I'm not even thinking in that like, okay, well, like maybe I should show my hands or, like all that perception, all that's going through my head, and I'm just looking through that, looking through this, and the officer's like, okay, stop. I can see you don't have it on you. I see, like, he's like, right now I can tow your car. I can find you. I can bring you. I can do all this stuff to you right now. But he's like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna give you this ticket. This ticket, it was like, I think it was like $5,000. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, holy shit, $5,000 for a ticket. Like, I'm panicking. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I think I'm like 20 years old, whatever. I'm like panicking. I'm like, where am I gonna find $5,000? And he's like, listen. I'm gonna write the ticket for you because I have to do it. So I'm writing the ticket for you. And what I'm gonna do is, if you can go to the court office and the courtroom in the next, I think it gave me like 5 days or whatever. That you can go there, prove that you have license, registration, all that stuff. This will be dropped. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can do that. And he followed me to our mechanic place. Like I dropped my car off, and he gave me a ride back to my house. So that experience, I'm like, yo, he didn't have to do that. The next day, I went to go show all that stuff. I got everything dropped, But it's one of those things where I'm like, as I'm watching like all the stuff on the news about like people getting pulled over and getting shot, for nothing, like I'm replaying that situation in my head. I'm like, yo, like I turn my back, I put my hand under my seat, I'm doing all this stuff where it could be perceived as I'm reaching for a weapon. And I'm like, on that instant, I could have got shot on that day, And it's just playing that in my head. And that was the instance where I'm like, okay, well, this is a good officer, So that's just kind of my story of showing that like not every interaction with officers are negative. So yeah.
I think that with your story there, that'd probably be the majority of police officers. Majority of police officers are good officers. Mm-hmm. Just like the majority of Black people are good people, but certain people might have a certain perception about Black people, right? What was I going to say? So that example you gave is most likely the norm, right? And I like what I like to say is, like, even though people are police officers and they're held to a higher standard of like being professional and dealing with the public, they're people first. And some people have a bad day, some people have good days. At the end of the day, even though they're police officers, are people. So they can, like the way you would think someone at a bank would behave, or someone at McDonald's, it's hard to say exactly what you would get. But the majority of those people are good people.
Yeah. I look at it this way, that, that police officers are a cross-section of society. Mm-hmm. Wherein in society you have, I say, as individual, we're good, but we're also fallible. We have faults, we have failures. And I look at that, in the police, and then sometimes you can say the good, the bad, the ugly, and I think, even though that's an exaggerated view to look at certain things, we have certain circumstances where some officers are good, but may make mistakes. You have some who, in my mindset, perhaps should not be police officers. They can pass the physical aspect of it, but it comes down to how they treat the public, their perception, and the mindset, us versus them, etc. In that situation, I think there's some individuals who should not be wearing that uniform when they get to that place where, quote unquote, they become the bad or the ugly. And just to talk about that media perception, if we look at the Derek Chauvin situation, because it's highlighted, and there's other officers like him who haven't been brought to the surface or to the fore as yet. But if we look at it, Mr. Chauvin had already shown who he was before the George Floyd situation, but it was swept 100%. Under the table. 100%. And that is what irks me about policing at times, wherein we have the majority of police officers who are great individual, dynamic persons, but we do have a percentage that are rotten to the core. And unfortunately, some of the decent officers, because it's not them that are doing the negative things, sometimes with that thin blue line, they keep their mouth shut. And that's detrimental to us, to that perception as to why there's a widespread, mistrust in the community towards policing. Because sometimes the good police officers do not hold the negative or the bad police officers accountable. And sometimes they don't hold them accountable because of fear. Because when you hold them accountable, sometimes there's reprisal on you as an officer when you step over in the line, quote unquote, and hold somebody that's accountable and report it. Unfortunately, sometimes those in authority and power sometimes come down on you because, quote unquote, you're not one of the boys, right? And sometimes, so that's what we have to fight against, holding each other accountable. And I think that's why sometimes the perception is so negative, because unfortunately we're not doing a good as job as we should be in that aspect.
Definitely.
I definitely agree. I think the biggest thing that I like from the outside looking in as a civilian, the biggest thing that I see is that like the accountability piece, because like as Milton just said, like I know officers who like up and down who are great people. Like Milton was one of those guys who would be in Kingston Road and Galloway in the hood, the Boys and Girls Club, and he'd be there looking out for people. Like not a lot of people, like obviously not people know, but like when I had my run-ins with the law, like Milton was one of those guys who kind of wrote a letter for me, and kind of spoke on my behalf. And it's like those good officers, like for sure outweigh the negative, but it's the perception, it's the media perception, it's the publicity, it's the highlighting of the negative officers. And when like that's where like kind of the trouble comes in with like the trust and mistrust with the community, right? It's just that as you see on TV shows, the blue wall, you see all that stuff on TV shows, right? So yeah.
Dewayne.
All right. So we all well aware of this current racial climate that we're in right now, and we have historically been in. But whose responsibility is it to remain calm in situations pertaining to law enforcement? Is it the civilian's responsibility or is it the police officer responsibility?
I think it's everyone's responsibility to stay calm in those situations. Again, police are held to a higher standard, so police are going to be more the people that should stay calm or are expected to stay calm. But everyone needs to stay calm because at the end of the day, everyone needs to go home safe, right? So when everyone goes home, everyone's going to go home safe. It usually happens when everyone's calm. And civilians, like I understand if you're dealing with the police, emotions come into it a lot of the time because you think, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Why is the police officer talking to me? Why are they saying that this happened? But a lot of times the police officer is getting information from someone else. It's not the police officer that is saying this is what you did or this is the situation. It was information passed on to the police, and now the police are investigating that, right? So as from the civilian standpoint, sometimes you got to remember that the police are there doing the job and it's not personal. And from the police standpoint, that's someone's on the civilian's end, that's their life. So it could change their life drastically. So they're going to be more emotional about it. Whereas to you, it's just like another call. I'm going to deal with this again 3 other times today. To that person that you're dealing with that one time, that could change their life forever. They could lose their job. They could lose their kids. They could lose a lot of things. And that's probably what's on their mind. What's not on your mind as a police officer. So I would say, again, everyone needs to be calm or try to be calm as best you can, because you obviously, when emotions come, you can't tell someone, calm down or chill out. Nobody's going to listen to that. But everyone has to keep that in the back of their mind that everyone needs to remain calm.
And I concur with Trumaine. I think it's everybody's responsibility to remain calm and try to help the situation. But I think there's some parameters that may guide that as well, because we as police officers have that special training, to de-escalate situations. The general public don't have that. So even though it's everybody's responsibility, there's a bit greater onus on the police. And not only that, it's everybody's responsibility to uphold the law. Everybody. But the ironic thing is we as police officers are one of the few people who get paid to actually be, servitude in law. The public don't get paid for it though. So in essence, it's our vocation, it's our job. So there's a greater onus on us in that perspective to bring our training, our professionalism to the job and try to de-escalate situation. And it's also great if we put our shoes in the civilian's perspective and encourage them somehow to put their shoes, in ours, in terms of, let's have that dialogue, that conversation. So let's think and put ourselves in the other person's place. The only way we get there is if we have continuous dialogue between the community and police on a continuous basis. Yep. So before the police officers come to that situation, it'd be great if that civilian had some forewarning of how we are as police officers. So right now, I think part of the negativity is we're not talking to each other enough. Right. So we need to set those groundworks, going into the communities, talking to people, not, having those community events, so that the community could know us, we could know the community. So when those encounters come, it's amazing when you walk into some place and you recognize somebody. It's like, bam, you know what? Hey, for sure, Johnny, it's going to be okay, man. It's going to be okay. Let's have a conversation. What's happening? When I go to certain events, for instance, now, I dance all over the place and people wonder why. There's a method to my madness. When I go to certain events and I'm already dancing with the people and I'm there, when they get a bit drunk a little bit later on and I go to, the gentleman and say, hey, you've had a little bit too much. They don't fight me. They don't argue with me because I've already built up that rapport with them from earlier in the evening.
Yeah.
I don't fold my arm and just sit back and watch. No, I get engaged. So I think if we as police officers, sometimes even when we're patrolling, get out of the car. Walk to the schools, walk through the community, right? When the shooting happened at Danzig, I walked up in Danzig, no gun in shorts, and talked to the people, right? And so if we police like that more and engage the community, I think we would have a better chance of, of having proper and great interactions when we come to deal with other greater things. And that's my perspective on that.
For sure. It's kind of interesting you mentioned that Danzig stuff because Senator and I were both there, man, and that was one of those moments where you'll never forget that moment. I remember that moment like not every single day, but it's one of those things that I'll never forget. Being there, being involved in that. Like I remember what happened before, what happened after. I remember everything, and that's one of the moments where like, it was nice to kind of know that okay, well. I know that there's good officers here, bad officers here, whatever the case is, but I know at the end of everything, I felt safe.
Yep.
So,
yeah. And
what are some?
Dewayne. And I was gonna say, did you feel safe because there was officers like from your community that were there, or like you were familiar with?
For sure,
and,
for sure.
I think that's what we need a little bit more of too, is officers that come from a certain area. Right, from the so give Toronto as an example. You to police Toronto, you gotta know Toronto, right? Not saying that if you come from somewhere else, like you bury and you become a police officer in Toronto, that you can't get to know Toronto. But like Milton and I would say myself have kind of an advantage coming from
100%
certain or growing up in certain areas. Whereas he was talking about walking through Danzig in his shorts and talking to people. The same thing happens to me and Jana Finch. Like I think like a month ago, I was there with my team and we were walking through, and I didn't even recognize some of these people because they knew me when I was like 3 years old. And they're like, "Yo, you're a cop?" And they're like, "How's Maureen? How's your mom? How's Chris?" And this and that. And my guys on my team were like, "You know these people?" I'm like, "Not really. Like I've seen them when I was like their faces look familiar, but they know me more." So it's that kind of relationship where they know you from before, they know your family, where they're more willing to communicate and open up and have dialogue with you.
It just puts people's guards down. Toronto is known as the screw-face capital of the world for a reason, For a reason. Wherever you go in Toronto, doesn't matter where you go. Like you can go to a barbecue with family, and everybody is there.
Some kind of attitude you're catching
wherever you go, because it's just the perception. It's just the.
But I would like to somewhat disagree on one part, though. Right?
Which part?
So I understand. I totally agree with people from the same community going back and trying to help police that community, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have a mentality of you want to keep that community safe. It's not everybody can go back there to be police officers, because if you sometimes having that badge, you feel way more powerful than you are, and having that, and you may have been bullied in that neighborhood before. So your thing is, I'm going to go back, and now that I have this power, I can go back and use it on them, right? You need people that want to be a part of the community, want to keep the community safe. It's that mentality of it. So like for me, I'll say Milton, because obviously me and you have a long-standing relationship. I seen from the moment when I met him, it was, I'm here to make sure that the community is safe, and that's it. So any little thing that there was, any opportunity that there was, when I used to have to drive around that trailer all around, and then we would see him come by. We just knew if he was there, like it was gonna just be a party. Like he'd come up to me, be like, "Hey, go play this track for me," and then all of a sudden I play it, and then he's dancing. But it keeps the guard down for everybody. But that's because he has that mentality of he wants to protect. Not everybody can go back in there and protect that neighborhood.
And I agree with you. Go ahead. I agree with what you're saying, but I think that goes back to what Milton said earlier. Is just that policing, not everyone is built to be a police officer. So if you have that mentality that you don't want to keep a community safe, you shouldn't be a police officer, because that's basically a major premise of your job, is to keep a community safe. No matter if you come from that community or you're a stranger to that community, your job, that's what you signed up for, is to keep communities safe. So if you're going there because some guy stole your Jordans when you were 15 and you want to go get retribution, then that job isn't for you. This job isn't for you.
I think like I have some people that I know, some acquaintances that I know that have been cops or been officers or whatever in districts that they didn't grow up in, and like they'll tell me, they're like, it's one of the hardest things that they have to do, because they don't have an understanding of the community, they don't have an understanding of the people, they don't have an understanding of the ways. It's really hard to step into an environment where you're not familiar with, and to try and assert yourself and be involved in that community, right? So he said it's one of the hardest things he had said. So like, kind of going back to what you guys were saying about being involved in the community, I think that is definitely a added bonus, because it's just certain nuances and certain things that you can kind of see. You're like, oh, this is what's going on. Oh, this guy is just doing this. So, like there's certain things where just kind of you have a kind of, I guess for lack of better words, a sixth sense of the community that you're involved with. To kind of go ahead.
You moved to Calgary, is it? Both you guys?
Yeah, Calgary, yeah.
That wherever you guys are in Calgary, that was foreign to you when you moved there, right?
100%.
But you learned, or you developed how to interact with that community.
Man, so it was get out when I first moved out here, man.
It was tough.
It was tough, but you did it.
Man, it was tough.
I was so shocked. Like the first day I moved out here, I walked around like the neighborhood, because I just wanted to see what was in the neighborhood, and like all these, like, I'm not used to being around so many white people smiling.
They're smiling at you. Yeah.
I was like, yo, if a teacup comes out, I'm out of here, yo. I'm out of here for sure.
You got it lucky, because I first moved to Alberta. My first encounter in Alberta, I went from Toronto. So everyone knows like Toronto. Toronto is like a big city, high spirited, a lot of stuff going on, multicultural, diverse. Big buildings. This is a big city, I went from Toronto to Edmonton. So those that know Alberta know Edmonton. Edmonton is like, it's called Edmonton for a reason. Like there's nothing going on. It's just blue collar, work. It's gray. It's just, everything just brings you down. So I went from Toronto there. So I was depressed. I was like, this is awful. It can't get worse than this. And I went from Edmonton to Calgary. And I'm like, oh, it's not Toronto, but it's not Edmonton. And the way people just, not everybody, but the majority of people, is just they embrace you, like they smile at you. It's like, as I said, Toronto, like I love Toronto. It's the screw-face capital of the world for a reason. But Calgary is one of those places where like I can walk down my street and somebody I don't know can smile at me and say good morning, and small things like that just kind of
everyone's cordial.
But it's weird though, man. Like coming from, like as I said, going to Toronto, like you kind of learn to kind of walk around a certain way. You know what I mean? Like I grew up in Galloway. Like I know. Senator always gets to me kind of name drop and stuff, but I know all these guys. So like growing up around all these guys, like you can't act a certain way. You can't be passive, or like you gotta stand up on your own 2 feet. eventually.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you gotta walk that. You gotta walk that way. And Calgary is like, it's not like that. It's not like that. You don't gotta walk that way in Calgary. Like, I can walk my daughter and my dog and kind of, like listening to Spice Girls walking down the street. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, man.
I ain't there yet. Dwayne.
So what are some steps we can take towards having better relations between marginalized communities and law enforcement? So what roles do civilians have in this, and what roles do law enforcement have?
I think coming to the table, like Milton said earlier, discussions. Like, to serve the community, we have to know the community's needs, right? And the only way you're going to know their needs is by the community telling you what they want. If it just goes by the police perspective, we might just think it's gun crime or something in a certain area, but whereas the people in that community might think it's something else. It might be housing, it might be employment, it might be anything. But if we don't have the conversation, then we're not going to be able to know exactly what a community needs, and those needs can change anytime, right? So we have to have constant dialogue to see what's going on. And that's like, we have neighborhood officers in Toronto. I don't know if you guys have those in Calgary, which are having those meetings. Unfortunately, probably not right now because of COVID and everything. They have those community meetings where they're getting to feedback from the community on what's needed and when they may want to see police. Like, there's been a rash of break-ins at this time. Do you mind coming around and being in the neighborhood at a certain time? If they didn't tell us this, we might not be doing that, right? So dialogue.
We also have to have, an open mind on both sides. Policing and the community have to have an open mind. So if we're saying that we want effective change, then we have to mean it. And if one side is trying to come to the table, we come to the table, but also the community come with solutions. And if we are saying that we want to have effective change and positive effect for the young people, we have to have them at the table. We as adults can't be making decisions on our own that affects young people and not involve them and include them. We as policing cannot be making decisions for the community without involving the community. So whomever is going to be affected or impacted by the decisions that we make have to be at the table. And we have to have representation at the table. Sometimes when I talk to some of my white colleagues who are police officers who think they can't make an impact in a Black community, quote unquote, or a community that have a majority of Black individuals or minorities, I say to them, you are wrong. I said, if you come and you have a positive mindset, I said, at first they may rebuff you because they don't know who you are and they want to make sure and prove you. But if you are genuine, after a while, they will recognize that, and they don't care what color you are. As long as you are positive as an officer and you mean to have positive effect on that community, they will embrace you, but you may have to prove yourself at first. Because and that genuineness. And the community, when they come to the table, come and recognize that sometimes as officers, we are lost in terms of what's happening in the community because some members have never been impacted or being affected the way you are. They've never had that experience. So recognize they may not know how to handle what you're going through and take the time to maybe explain, break it down, and be patient. So it may take some time. Right now, the police in Toronto, they're having this focus table concept wherein they're now trying to come to the community, recognize that an person who may commit a crime, what's behind it? Do they need some family help? Is it mental health? Is it this? So let's try and break down what's happening and see how we can affect that person, help that person, because we may have to help their family. Once we help this individual, we may have to then turn to the family and say, how can we help the family? Is it housing? Is it this? Right? So there's a lot of things that we need to do, but as long as we come with a plan and we come collectively that we're going to stick together and do it, it can be fine. But we can't have members of the community who are coming to the police and want to say, we're here for we want change. And when the police are ready to speak, you keep on attacking and attacking and attacking. It's not going to work, right? We have to recognize and give and take on both sides of the equation and recognize that we're here to serve and protect, working together with the community. If we're not working with the community as officers, we're doomed. We have to work with the community. And hopefully once we embrace the community, the community embraces us and we can work together.
Definitely. I think
Definitely. Yeah.
that's a very true statement. But I also
One of the
want to
biggest
add,
words you said. Go ahead.
I also want to add that with the fact of we have civilians and we have law enforcement, and yes, that's true, but we also can have civilians that are city councilors. We have that can go in to really make impacts on that level too. So sometimes we just look at it as there's just the two sides, as civilian and law enforcement, but there are other areas of aspects that can play into everything. And so if you know that if you're somebody that has the support, you're a go-to person in the neighborhood and might be one of those people that really can make a real impact, and know that you can really make an impact on a higher level than what you're currently doing, whether that might be volunteering or whatever. Try it out. Try being a city councilor. Try making that effort right there, because I've known people that I went to high school with that tried to run for city councilors and stuff like that. They didn't have the voice that some other people do have, but there's never a thing that says you're not allowed to do it. There's nothing wrong with giving that a shot. You might be that person that can go in there and really tell law enforcement at that point, this is what's really happening. And I know this is really happening because I live there. And I also am hearing from the community, like, hey, this is happening at this time, at this location every single day. And everyone shows up 30 minutes late after that, right? So there's other areas that people can do to really help the situation.
I agree. I mean, I think kind of attaching to what Senator just said and speaking to what Milton said earlier is that, like, being genuine, like, people can sense bullshit. People can sense what's fake. People can sense when you're trying to, like, fit in. Like, people can sense that. So, like, when you're genuine and you have, like, real pure intentions, okay, like, I want to help the situation, I want to be involved in the situation, I want to help this community, whatever that is, like, being genuine in that. And then on the other end is that the community coming to the table. Cause I know, like, in like my community growing up, like, I was always taught, like, don't talk to police, you know, like, I have nothing to say to them, you know. And like, as an adult now with a kid and wanting more kids and being like, kind of removed from that environment, it's like, okay, well, maybe I might have negative involvements with police officers, but how are they going to know what my needs and wants are if I don't talk to them? They're going to pull their own information from whatever information. It's not going to affect me. So whatever, like, I'm doomed, you know. So unless I'm at the table, unless I can kind of be there and speak, you know, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what my community needs, this is what I see for my future. Unless I'm there and have those conversations, I can't better myself, right? So kind of like, you got to kind of help yourself out, you know, you can't just always play the victim, you know. And that's one of the things that kind of being involved in the community that I've kind of seen, that, like, always, you know, woe is me, the police are picking on me, which definitely happens. Like, you know, like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but what I'm saying is, like, you can't handicap yourself. You got to come to the table. And speaking to what Milton said, you got to come to that table, right? So
yeah, I honestly think it'll definitely help with community relations going forward, especially when Milton was just saying that a lot of the police officers now, what they're wanting to do is get to the roots of all these situations and issues that people are having, and to have these open dialogues. So I definitely think there is some direction that it's going in, and it seems to be a positive one. So those are things that a lot of like people like us, civilians, we don't know what's going on. We just we have media, we have the news, we have Six Buzz and all these other crazy things that we're looking at, and it's all negative. So it's good to hear the other side of, like, there's actually some positive things going forward.
It's great you mentioned that, because people who know me know I do not watch the news. I hate the news. I hate it. Anyone who knows me knows I hate it. My mom watches CNN like it's like the gospel channel. CNN is her channel, like Nancy Grace, all that. Like, she loves that stuff. Like, I can't do it because it's just like, I'm one of the people that, like nothing really phases me, but I hate negativity. And whenever I turn the news on, it's always something negative. And it's just one of those things where, like, if you watch the news, like, you're just gonna get a hatred for this and for that and for this. Like, if I watch the news all the time, like, I'd be strongly against COVID. You know, because like, I'd be strongly against policing. I'd be strongly against a lot of things because it's just the news is so negative. Media in general is so negative. I know we have a podcast and stuff, and this is us kind of speaking our truth, but media in general can be so draining and negative. And it's funny you mentioned that, fanfare, man, because I hate the news, bro. I hate it. So much.
If it bleeds, it leads, is what they say, right? So it's entertainment. And you guys have a podcast, but you're not answering to anyone at no special interest. You're dealing with it on your own, right? Each news agency, whatever, has someone that's paying their bills that they have to.
Yep.
They have to
for sure.
A controlling entity at the top.
Yeah.
Sure.
So they need to keep their ratings up. They need to have the shock value. They need all this stuff. So
I'll say that you should check out the news. You just shouldn't check out the news every moment of the day. Like, you should know the news as much as whatever local news is something that you should check out to see what happened in the city that you live in. Because sometimes when you hear it through the word of mouth, it's not anything close to what is actually happened, right? So you should check it out. You shouldn't focus your entire day on it, because if you already are a person that lives in fear, then especially for your mental health. And we just left mental health month. It plays onto it. So you always have to make sure self-care is the best care, and make sure that you're focusing on that. Yes, you want to know what's going on in your community. Just don't sit in front of the TV and watch CNN, Fox, all that stuff.
City don't TV, be my mom.
CB 24 hours a day, because that's not going to help your situation. You got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And because of that, I'm going to ask this last question before we jump into the social media promotions. After a very hard day, everybody here works. We all work in different fields, but we all work. After a hard day of work, is there a song or a show that you like to come home to listen to or watch to just help you unwind after that day?
Turn your brain off.
I listen to podcasts. Like right now, I'm on the Joe Budden podcast. That's
Me too. I was just about to say that. Me too.
On my way to work, on my way home from work, Joe Budden podcast. A bunch of different shows on Netflix. I'm kind of into like Korean movies and series on Netflix. So that's what I kind of do to unwind.
Okay. And the one thing I will say to you, Trumaine, is because everybody on this podcast, even my people, they know that I've been a huge Joe Budden fan from like when he was rapping, like way back in the day, right? So like I was tuning into Joe Budden podcast from like day one, right? Like episode one, I was there. But ever since when I got my car and I started driving, it takes me like 3 days to finish the epispisode because they're like 3 hours long. So I'm like,
long.
So I'm like, all right, cool. This is a whole week, like 2 times a week. That's my entire week, my entire drive to and from work. So yeah.
For me, I've got big grown kids, so there's nothing sweeter for me. Then I listen to music and I love music. Then coming home, and sometimes I pick up my daughter from work, or I pick up my son, and coming home and just chilling out. And I love the fact that I have grown kids, aside from just family things, but I have grown kids who would sit and watch something with me. They still want to watch something. We have different things that we watch together and stuff like that with my sons, like Full Metal Alchemist and certain animes and stuff. Like with my daughter, it might be Law and Order, and with the family aspect or this, but it's just the sweetest feeling to know that I have a son who's almost 29, a daughter who's 27, and we can just chill out and just watch something together. You just forget about everything.
Definitely.
And you just can, sometimes you can watch certain things as a family. You know what I'm saying? So when the family get together and you can watch something as a family and just relax, I love it. I love it.
I feel you on that one.
Sure. That's the one thing where me being a new father, my daughter is almost 2 now. And like when I was like coaching basketball and I still am coaching, but like due to COVID, like when I was doing like at SAID and stuff, I'd come home and I'd want to watch videos and stuff and like go over game film and stuff. And it's like my brain never turns off because I'm coaching at the game and I leave the game, I come home and I'm analyzing, I'm coaching and stuff. And I go to sleep and I wake up and I'm coaching, I go to the gym, I'm coaching. It's just a never ending cycle. And like having my daughter around, it's like, oh, I come home, and if she's awake, which most times she is, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. But if I come home and she's awake, it's like, oh, I can hang out with her for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, and just turn my brain off for a little bit, or come home and watch my girlfriend's dumb TV that she watches, all that. I'm not even going all the stuff she watches. She watches all that Japanese stuff and all that stuff. I'm not getting into it, man. Sarah knows, man. I came home one time, he's watching, what are you watching? That The Circle something? I'm like,
The Circle. It's a dope show.
What is this
check
on
it
TV?
out. Check it out. The Circle.
I came home
like
like,
watch
yo,
The Circle.
what the hell is this?
And we don't appreciate you calling them dumb shows. It's just not shows that you watch. They're not dumb shows. They're just shows that you watch.
These are awful.
Dewayne,
Different shows.
Different shows. Dewayne,
Very different.
what's yours?
I just listen to some music, just put on some podcasts on YouTube, just go on Netflix, put on a show or a movie or something. I watch anime or read mangas. I'm a nerd. I just do all that stuff.
Nerds are in right now. That's what I think. So
it's damn Skippy.
Yeah. And for me, I will honestly tell you that it depends on how like stressful of a day of work I have. But let's say I'm gonna take it to the fully extreme, like the most stressful day that I would have. Honestly, I come home and I watch something very ridiculous, and I watch like the best of Catfish on YouTube. Just because to me, I'm like, man, like I think last week they dropped it's like season 8, episode 32. Like this stuff is still happening to this day. So like
I just saw a video on IG of Catfish with Peter Guns. Was it Peter Guns on it? It was like
what?
No, he was like co-host. He's doing.
Bro, he's on it, bro.
He's not doing Catfish. He's a new host of Cheaters.
Oh, Cheaters. That's what it was. Sorry, Cheaters. That's what. Cheaters,
wow.
That's what it was. I'm like,
they got Peter Guns.
Peter Guns. Yo. I'm like, yo, what? This man's talking about how I don't know. It was wild. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. This is crazy. Peter Guns, bro.
Nah, I think it's just ridiculous. Like I find it very funny that people like in this era, like while COVID is going on, that people are still saying that they've been in a 3-year relationship with somebody and they've never seen them and there's no way to video chat or anything. And I'm like,
that's awful.
I'm like, nah, this can't be real.
Awful.
So
talking on the phone for 2 years.
Yeah. So
never seen them.
It just makes me laugh because I'm like, it just completely separate from everything that I do throughout the day. So it's just But we reached the part of the podcast where we get to promote our social medias and anything else that we might be working on. So we're gonna start with our guests. So Trumaine, you want to start off?
I don't really have any social media to promote or anything like that, but I would like to say, we didn't mention it earlier, but my team Chelsea is the 2021
team. I've been riding them for years.
Yeah.
Champions, baby.
Shout out Chelsea for winning the Champions League today. Unfortunately, we didn't win FA Cup 2 weeks ago, but we'll settle with just the Champions League win. Sorry?
Is that UEFA or is that Champions League?
UEFA Champions League, yeah.
Champions League,
yeah. That might be the wildest promotion that we've had on the podcast since we started.
Hey,
but we appreciate it. We appreciate it.
I shout out Lakers all the time, so it's what it is.
Milton.
And for me, I just like to shout out some of the groups I work with in the community. I think are just doing a fantastic job. And in Brampton, I have Rescue Youth International with Abigail Hamilton, just doing a fantastic job out there. The Scarborough Boys and Girls Club, affiliated with for a great deal of time. There's impact in the community in Scarborough. Sometime working 4301 Kingston Road, and there's Ontario Justice Education, OGEN. Just individuals and communities and groups that are just doing a fantastic job with our youth in the community. Just like I say, big up and just continue doing it, man.
Appreciate that. Love,
appreciate that.
Yeah, Coach.
Yeah, my IG is real_deal_Francis. That's my IG, and we just got some word that we're gonna be they've rolled out a plan for us to be back to kind of regular life as of when is it? July 1st?
COVID's over July 5th, people, just in time for a stampede.
Yeah. So they've rolled out this plan. So the ACAC, they rolled out a plan for us to get back to kind of coaching basketball and stuff. Or not only basketball, but coaching sports in general and getting back to that kind of daily stuff. So I'm kind of just in limbo right now. Like I'm excited because I get to get back in the gym soon, hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Nope. Dewayne.
Yeah, just my Instagram, Chaz, CHAS_Tenenbaum, TENENBAUM.
Yo, why you always come in so smooth for, man? Like why? Like I'm always here. I'm always ready to go with. Yeah, so my Instagram. Like why?
I don't know, man. That's how I talk. I can't change how I talk.
We are gonna also thank Dwayne's girl for empowering him this episode, and that's the reason. And
shout out to you.
He probably did it smooth one time. She was like, "I really like how you did it," so he's like, "I'm gonna keep doing it that way too."
Hey man, there's one thing: empower your black men. Empower them. Speak life into them.
Yep.
And as for me, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at The Senator. Don't forget to check out Not So Soft Podcast with myself, Nino Rockwell, Kino the Great. We drop every Friday. Don't forget to check out Talks with the Chatterbox with Mr. Pro Chatterbox himself. Once again, congratulations.
Congratulations.
He asked a question. He asked a question. She said yes.
Congrats.
Congratulations, my brother.
So congrats to Mr. Pro Chatterbox and his fiance, and Baritone Levy's on that podcast.
So question, would she be Mrs. Pro Chatterbox now?
No, they're not married yet. And yeah, don't forget to check out the Chatroom Podcast on Instagram at @the.chatroompod. If you have more questions that you would want us to ask our officers that were on here, don't forget to email them to our email at thechatroompod@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, and share the Chatroom Podcast wherever you listen to. We're also drop audio and video on the same day. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Chatroom Pod. You'll see it there. Just search it. We have all the episodes on there. All videos are on there too. And before we end off, we just want to say thank you very much to our guests, Officer Milton, Officer
Thank you,
Trumaine.
guys.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I think the conversation was dope, and I think that when we get more questions and stuff like that, we'll definitely reach out for a part 2. So
Yeah,
just
good.
be prepared for that. And
Anytime.
And this has been the Chatroom Podcast, your favorite baller's favorite podcast, and we are out.
Peace.
Peace.
Blessings.